How dangerous should motorsport really be? I hear this opinion all the time, that modern motorsport has become too safe. And for many fans, that is somehow a problem. They say there is no real risk anymore. No sense of danger, no feeling that drivers are laughing in the face of death. In other words, there is no longer that mix of fear and spectacle people secretly crave. But let's be honest for a moment. Anyone racing wheel-to-wheel at over 185 miles per hour while trying to overtake another car with inches to spare clearly has nerves of steel. No matter how you look at it, that level of commitment takes an insane amount of courage. Yes, today, Formula One and motorsport as a whole are filled with safety systems and strict protocols. The last fatal accident in Formula One happened in 2014, and now, even crashes that look absolutely horrifying on TV often end with the driver walking away with bruises and a heavy shock. And thank God for that, because it was not always this way. Almost every modern safety feature in motorsport was invented through tragedy. I know that drivers still lose their lives in other racing series, especially in rallying. And motorsport, despite all modern safety requirements, remains one of the most dangerous sports in the world, no matter what anyone says. But today, we will focus on Formula One, the fastest racing series on the planet, and the place where most safety innovations are born before spreading to other championships. And if you want to experience motorsport without putting your life at risk, sim racing is by far the safest way to do it. Our friends at P1 Racing can help you choose the right equipment at the best price. And don't forget to subscribe to my Telegram channel, where I post news, memes, and links to race broadcasts. Everything is in the description. Over more than 70 years of Formula One history, 47 drivers have lost their lives, 33 of them during official World Championship events. Despite this, modern Formula One is often criticized for being too obsessed with safety. People say racing used to be a sport for real men, and now it has turned into some kind of ballet on wheels. They say drivers are afraid to race in the rain, and that things were different back then. And yes, things really were different. In the early days, drivers did not even wear proper helmets. They would put a simple cloth cap on their head, wear aviator goggles, and go racing. Everything else was considered a sign of weakness. But as we know, much of Formula One history is written in blood. In the early 1950s, the first helmet prototypes began to appear, based on aviation designs. But I don't think it needs explaining that a simple helmet alone was nowhere near enough. In 1960, at the Belgian Grand Prix, British driver Alan Stacey was killed after a bird struck him directly in the face at high speed. He lost consciousness and crashed. He was wearing a helmet, but it made no real difference. After that, drivers began to widely use protective visors. In 1972, during the French Grand Prix, Austrian driver Helmut Marko, yes, the same Dr. Marko who today runs Red Bull Racing, was hit in the face by a stone kicked up from the Lotus driven by Emerson Fittipaldi. Thankfully, he survived, but suffered severe eye damage. After that, the International Motorsport authorities required all drivers to use shatterproof visor materials. But even helmets were never a full guarantee of safety. A helmet did not save Ayrton Senna. 10 years after his death, Bell introduced a new helmet designed under stricter safety standards. Still, it was not enough. In 2009, at the Hungarian Grand Prix, a suspension component flew off another car and struck Brazilian driver Felipe Massa directly on the helmet. The footage was terrifying, but fortunately, it did not end in tragedy. Senna's death became a turning point and marked a major shift in motorsport safety philosophy. In 1998, wheel tethers made from ultra-strong polymers were introduced to prevent wheels from flying off cars. But even that did not fully solve the problem. In 2001, at the Australian Grand Prix, after a collision between Ralf Schumacher and Jacques Villeneuve, a wheel from Villeneuve's car flew over the barriers and struck a track marshal in the chest. Tragically, he was killed. In 2009, during a Formula 2 race at Brands Hatch, a detached wheel struck Henry Surtees in the head. He lost consciousness, crashed at full speed, and later died in hospital. Only in 2011 did the FIA finally strengthen the design and require an additional tether for each wheel. Another safety system that could have saved countless lives if introduced earlier is the Hans device, the head and neck support system. It was actually invented back in 1987. The concept is simple. It is a U-shaped carbon fiber collar that sits around the driver's neck and shoulders and is connected directly to the helmet with tethers. It does not interfere with exiting the car and works constantly by limiting horizontal head movement. The system reduces head movement relative to the neck by about 75%. The benefit is obvious, but widespread adoption only came in the early 2000s, with NASCAR leading the way. And honestly, NASCAR drivers have always been a special breed. At first, even the death of legendary driver Dale Earnhardt during the 2001 Daytona 500 did not convince many veterans. Five-time NASCAR vice champion Mark Martin famously said, "I will never wear it. I would rather cross my fingers and take the risk." However, after the death of another driver, Blaze Alexander, later that same year, NASCAR made the Hans device mandatory. In 2003, the FIA followed by requiring head and neck protection in all Formula Racing series. And since 2008, Hans has been mandatory across global motorsport under FIA regulations. In 2020, a terrifying accident happened involving French driver Romain Grosjean at the Bahrain Grand Prix. At enormous speed, he hit the barriers his car was wedged between the guardrails and instantly burst into flames. Only through a miracle and the fast, coordinated response of the marshals, Grosjean escaped the burning car, suffering burns to his hands. A huge part of his survival was also due to his fire-resistant racing suit. Formula One drivers have always been quite conservative and often resist new technology, even when it is designed to protect them. Fireproof suits were no exception. Drivers preferred lightweight cotton suits and were not eager to switch to bulky fire-resistant gear until cars actually started burning. In 1976, at the Nürburgring, Austrian driver Niki Lauda was trapped in a fire after a horrific crash in his Ferrari. Footage of that accident is on the channel. Lauda survived in part thanks to his fire-resistant Nomex suit, developed by DuPont originally for NASA spacesuits. With so many safety systems introduced, not even counting smaller innovations and detailed safety protocols, it might seem like Formula One has become one of the safest sports in the world. After Ayrton Senna, no one died in Formula One for many years. That was true until 2014. During the Japanese Grand Prix, young rising star Jules Bianchi was killed. Suzuka is an extremely demanding circuit, and Japanese weather often adds another unpredictable layer of danger. During that race weekend, a typhoon hit the track in Japan. After just a few laps, it was obvious that racing in those conditions was, to put it mildly, extremely dangerous. The race directors red-flagged the event. 15 minutes later, the race resumed. Things were relatively calm until near the end, when Sauber driver Adrian Sutil crashed into the barriers. Immediately, a recovery vehicle went onto the track to remove Sutil's car. We won't go into the details of the crash or who was at fault. In reality, Jules Bianchi entered that notorious corner at over 75 miles per hour, lost control of his car, and slammed into the recovery vehicle that was already on the track. Bianchi's car went literally under the 6-ton truck. He suffered a severe head injury and remained in a coma for 9 months. On the night of July 17, 2015, Jules Bianchi passed away at just 25 years old. This was the first death in Formula One since Ayrton Senna 21 years earlier. The shockwaves went through the motorsport world. We had grown so accustomed to modern F1 cars being safe that it was easy to forget motorsport is still deadly. Bianchi's death forced the governing bodies to reconsider safety improvements. The first step was introducing the virtual safety car. The second was the development of the Halo cockpit protection system, the ARC you see above today's cars. Work on the Halo actually began back in 2011, but serious progress only happened after Jules' death. There were several concepts, including Ferrari's Shield and Red Bull's Aeroscreen. Some even considered fully enclosed cockpits like fighter jets, but that could have complicated emergency extraction in a crash or fire. Ultimately, Mercedes proposed the Halo, and in 2018, the FIA mandated its use across all Formula Racing series. Of course, the Halo faced a ton of criticism. People said it was useless, cumbersome, and would never work. Initially, only Ferrari voted in favor of it, while Toto Wolff even joked about sawing it off despite Mercedes' design. But by 2019, the Halo saved Charles Leclerc during the Belgian Grand Prix, when Fernando Alonso ran over his car in a McLaren. In 2020 at Mugello, the Halo protected both Antonio Giovinazzi and Carlos Sainz from serious injuries. I already mentioned Romain Grosjean's fiery crash in the same year. Even Lewis Hamilton, who had been skeptical about the Halo while under Toto Wolff's team, owes his life to the system after his crash with Max Verstappen at Silverstone in 2021. And Guan Yu Zhou's crash at Silverstone in 2022 doesn't even need commentary. Today, these systems seem so obvious and natural, but they came at a high cost. Can motorsport ever be made completely safe? Personally, I don't think so. You can minimize risk, but unpredictable circumstances will always exist. Despite all modern systems and safety protocols, in 2019, French Formula 2 driver Antoine Hubert died at the notorious Arouche-Riedel corner. He was only 22. The The track has been modified since, made a bit safer, but it remains extremely dangerous. Race officials are constantly trying to improve track safety, changing layouts, adding new runoff areas, tech pro barriers, updating rules and protocols. Red flags go up, safety cars deployed at the slightest incident. But there's one factor that cannot be predicted: human error. In 2020 in Suzuka, Japan, in heavy rain, Ferrari's Carlos Sainz lost control on the very first lap and went off track. A tractor went out to remove his car. Imagine French driver Pierre Gasly, in near-zero visibility, seeing a tractor and a Ferrari on the track in front of him. He didn't slow down enough, and he was penalized, but the incident shows how unpredictable things can get. Flashbacks from 8 years earlier were vivid, and we don't need to go far for examples. At the 2025 Mexican Grand Prix, Racing Bulls driver Liam Lawson almost ran over a marshal's car. Officials blame the driver, though questions remain about the organizers too. Formula One and motorsport as a whole have made enormous strides in safety over the years. Many lives lost have ultimately saved others, but as long as living drivers sit in these cars, motorsport will always be deadly. There are plenty of fans who want more thrills, more fear-inducing moments, but not for themselves. They watch from the comfort of a warm couch, while real drivers risk their lives. These are the same people who certainly wouldn't want to die on track. We must never forget that. Tragically, it's impossible to predict every error or miscalculation, but when disaster strikes, the key is to learn from it and improve. Thank you so much for watching, and take care of yourselves and your loved ones.